So never in my life would I have thought that there would be a new class and also new endgame content added to Diablo 2 after pretty much 20-ish or 25 years. And although it's not quite that fresh new experience of when Lord of Destruction first came out with the Druid and Assassin, Warlock is nonetheless a pretty fun and unique class. And I would also say that with this class, I've had by far the smoothest and easiest leveling experience so far throughout my whole Diablo 2 career. And with the new ladder season just launching, from this quick video you'll have everything you need to know for the optimal start and leveling experience for the Warlock. With that, starting with the skills, at least before around level 50-ish, you'll want to roll with the Chaos Tree and just basically try to max out all of the fire skills. Now in this clip, I've already Respec after getting into Hell, but essentially I'm hovering over the skills that you need. So you'll want Ring of Fire, and then also get the Flame Wave and then Apocalypse eventually. And then you also want to get the Sigils because they are prerequisites to unlock Apocalypse. And then over on the Demon Tree, I also recommend getting Bind Demon and all the prerequisites, although there are a lot of prerequisites for it, but Bind Demon can be extremely useful for getting Hephaestus from the Hellforge in Act 4, because he can actually spawn with Conviction Aura, and by using the Consume skill, again also from your Demon Tree, you'll be able to keep Hephaestus alive fairly easily, and just consistently have this huge damage boost, but not only that, allow you to break fire immunity starting from Nightmare difficulty, which is extremely useful, especially if you're rolling more solo. Back over to the Chaos Tree, again you want to focus on the fire skill starting with Ring of Fire at level 6, and then max out Flame Wave. I would actually recommend prioritizing Flame Wave once you hit levels 18 and not necessarily have to max out Ring of Fire, but just put more of your points into Flame Wave. And then also after you get Apocalypse at level 30, I would actually suggest putting a bit more points into Apocalypse, but kind of alternating between that and Flame Wave. Now namely Flame Wave is more recommended than Ring of Fire because it's just a lot more mana efficient. It does take a little bit of aiming, but once you get the hang of it, you'll just find yourself having to chug mana pots a bit less frequently. But you can definitely alternate both skills, and that's sort of the more ideal, higher damage way to go. And of course, once you get Apocalypse, you can actually spam all three skills, but with how much damage Apocalypse and Flame Wave does, usually the two comboing would allow you to basically clear any elite pack that you encounter. Now before level 6 though, because Ring of Fire only unlocks at level 6, before that I would actually suggest just rolling with a decent melee weapon or the best one that you can find and just putting a point into Summon Goatman, since I would recommend going down to Bind Demon eventually anyway. So having that 1 point in Goatman can just be a prerequisite, and it'll be helpful for before level 6, before you unlock your first fire skill. And really quick onto your stats. This is fairly standard as you really only need strength and potentially dexterity for any equipment that you'll want to equip, and that's typically quite low because especially starting off you typically won't be going with the melee weapons builds, so you won't really need to go with high requirement items or weapons. So you just need some basic strength, say up to like 40 something ish strength is usually enough. You probably don't need any dex at all. And then you can put the rest of your stat points into Vitality. And besides that, I also actually recommend, especially early on, to put at least like a handful of points into Energy, because just having a slightly larger mana pool is very helpful actually, since especially once you get like the Rhyme Runewords and some other sources of mana regen, and just having your mana pots be more like cost efficient, I suppose, to be able to fill up a larger mana pool each time you use a mana pot is actually pretty underrated. So I actually recommend putting say like 15 or 20 points into Energy to start off, and especially since Ring of Fire is more energy or mana intensive, at least until you get Flame Wave. But just having a bit more energy is helpful in a lot of ways, especially early on, and since you're likely going to be respecking anyway as you enter Hell difficulty, these initial points in Energy is not really gonna be wasted. And of course, after all that, you can just pump the rest into Vitality, and Warlocks actually get a ton of life just through putting each point into Vitality, which is yet another reason on top of all the other crazy things about Warlocks that makes them really powerful and just difficult to die as you level up. And with that, moving on to some leveling strategies. For the most part, your character is going to be so powerful that you won't really need to stop and level up, if at all the way up to completing normal difficulty pretty much. If you really want to, say around level 15-ish, you can do some like Tristram runs. That tends to be pretty efficient. And then in your level early 20s, you can also do Tomb of Tal Rasha runs. And then when you get to Act 5, once you complete the Ancients, you can also make custom games to join other people to do Bale Minion runs, or you can also just do Bloody Foothills and just teleport to the first waypoint in Act 5, which is the Frigid Highlands, and just kill Eldritch. And if you want, you can also clear the first zone in Act 5. That tends to be a really chill and easy way to level up, say around the late level 20s all the way up to almost the mid level 30s. And then Bale runs can also take you up to close to level 40 if you really wanted to. But again, with how powerful your character will be, especially if you roll with the recommended fire build, there really isn't going to be much of a reason for you to stop, even through Nightmare difficulty. Another great thing about going with a fire build is the ability to use the Leaf Runeword, which is tier Rao runes on a 2-socketed staff. It'll give you +3 to fire skills and also mana per kill. And the busted thing about Warlocks is that they can wield two-handed weapons with one hand, meaning that you can even combo the Leaf Runeword with an offhand, such as especially the Rhyme Runeword, which you'll need the Shale Rune for. So it's Shale Eth on a 2-socketed offhand. A lot of people think you'll need to put it on a shield, but this actually works on Warlock codexes as well. There's like the new Warlock offhand, and those offhand bases can even roll with plus skills. So if you get like +2 fire skills and put Rhyme on top of that, and then combo that with the Leaf Runeword, it'll just be extremely busted for you. You'll have strong offense and defense and mana regeneration. And on top of that, you can even go with some other good and cheap rune words like the Lore Runeword for the Helm, also very easily accessible, and also the Stealth Runeword for your chest armor. And after that, you can even pivot to, say, of course, the standard Spirit Monarch Shield, and even like a Spirit Shield if you just want +2 to all skills, and especially after you perhaps respec out of the fire spec or before you enter Hell difficulty. Now, quickly getting into some gameplay tips. As I mentioned before, I do think that it's worth it to go into Bind Demon just to get the Conviction Aura from Hephaestus in Hellforge, even from normal difficulty. This will help you greatly in Nightmare, especially as you encounter fire immunes, such as the Maggot Queen here, which I did use Hephaestus to break its immunity and basically one-shotted it using Apocalypse, so that was extremely satisfying. And as for keeping Hephaestus alive, you can simply just bind the Engorge skill to one of your keybinds and just keep topping it off with that skill. It's fairly easy to do in my opinion. And besides that, you also want to make sure not to summon any other demon, nor do you want to accidentally consume your Hephaestus demon, right? So because you either have 0 or 1 point into demonic mastery, that'll only allow you to have one demon up at once. And for another tip, in terms of the skills you want to like prioritize, I would say that Flame Wave is your main spamming ability because it does the most damage per mana cost, although the range is a bit more narrow, but it can shoot pretty far, so it works well for like corridors and stuff. But Ring of Fire can also be quite good, and you can definitely combo the two together. But I would say Flame Wave would be my main skill, followed by Apocalypse. Apocalypse does cost a lot of mana, but the damage on it is also insane. So I usually use Apocalypse on like, of course, larger monster packs, but also like champion or elite monsters. This tends to take away the vast majority of their health, which is one cast. And if you just combo Apocalypse with Flame Wave, and even throw in the Sigil Lethargy, which will slow enemies as well, this will ensure enemies stay within your Apocalypse circle for you to blast all of them in one go. And next, there are some so-called 1-point wonders in the Warlock skill tree, although I didn't really go into some of them, besides of course the aforementioned Bind Demon. But aside from that, some people also like going into like Psychic Ward, which will give you some slight damage absorption and also like be able to stun melee attackers. Although with the sheer amount of health that I have just by pumping vitality, I didn't find that necessarily at all. Another skill that people tend to like is Blade Warp from also the Eldritch tree, but this does take a few points to get to, and although it is a teleport technically, I did have a lot of movement speed, and also this teleport does not get you over walls, so it is very much like a budget sorceress teleport, so for that reason I also didn't take Blade Warp. Now again, clearing Nightmare difficulty is generally not going to be an issue as long as you're following this build, but once you do enter Hell, I do highly recommend respecking out of the fire spec, especially with the large number of fire immune monsters in Hell, making it very difficult even if you have Hephaestus to help. And of course Hephaestus may well die a lot more easily in Hell as well, so that will just be a lot less reliable. So my recommendation and what I did personally was to respec to a magic build with Eldritch Chains. So for that you would max out the Eldritch Chains, max out Abyss, and then go into Miasma Bolt, and then the Miasma passive. And I also like taking the Defiler up in the Demon Tree, because the Defiler, if you sacrifice it or consume it, it will actually gain additional magic damage as well. And if you have enough plus skills with Demon Mastery, you can even summon like multiple demons at once. So if you can get to like plus 10 to skills or plus 9 to skills, you can actually have a consumed Defiler and then also summon another Defiler on top of that. So with magic damage being a very uncommon immunity, say for like Bale Wave 2, you'll generally have very little issue in Hell difficulty. But I would recommend rolling with a group as well. Now there is more than one way to respec out of the fire spec. For example, you could go for like a demon build, which would use like a powerful bound demon plus, you know, maybe some goatmen, and then with Blood Boil doing hybrid damage, it's kind of like Corpse Explosion where it does both fire and physical damage, and it's also a spammable skill. It could potentially be somewhat viable as well, especially if you like that sort of playstyle in fantasy, right? And also going into the Eldritch tree, if you go for like the weapon specs, that is probably the most powerful endgame spec at the moment, even amongst like most of all the classes. But you do need sort of the gear to back it up, right? Namely like a good weapon and so forth. So if you can get like a strong two-handed weapon, or like even put in like insight into like a two-handed weapon to help you with mana, insight honestly does decent damage too, so that's potentially a route that you could go with if you do find like a good base and like the runes and some of the gear for that. And with that, you should be well on your way to progressing through Hell and eventually into farming the endgame in this latter season. Now in terms of farming strategies, there isn't necessarily like a one-size-fits-all, and you can do multiple things that you feel like doing, even if just for fun. But I would recommend, or highly recommend, picking up a teleport staff from one of the caster vendors in town, such as Mara. That would be extremely useful, as long as you're keeping up with your gold income just by picking up some yellow items and plus skill items and selling them for gold. Anyhow, with the teleport staff, you can farm things like Hell Mephisto and Dariel. I also like farming Nilithak with a safer range build. For example, if you're using like Miasma Chains and Abyss, or a fire build with Apocalypse, if you happen to have or be able to get a Fire Thunder Charm, these can be fairly safe ways to farm Nilithak in Halls of Pain. And with the teleport staff, you can easily find Nilithak because there are just a few specific layouts to his maps that will tell you exactly where the lower level is to find Nilithak. And I'll link a guide for that below in case you're not too familiar with it. And with the Key of Destruction that Nilithak drops, that's usually a more expensive or more valuable key compared to the other more easily farmable keys. Now in this patch, there's also an update with the terror zones, so you could definitely focus on that. And in these terror zones, you'll also find these new Heralds of Terror that, as long as you chain multiple Heralds of Terror in the terror zones, you'll actually have a way to kind of obtain more Sunder Charms, and especially early on in the ladder, I imagine these to be extremely valuable because these are in fact a new way to obtain Sunder Charms. They apparently are no longer a random drop in Terror Zones. Instead, you have to kill these Heralds of Terror in the Terror Zones to be able to get them to drop. And if you kill a terrorized boss as well, they can drop this item that can allow you to terrorize a zone on demand. So you can get a few of those items and then just chain terrorize like a few zones and get a few heralds to be able to build up a herald to get your Sunder Charm drops that way. And that was my quick start guide for the Warlock in the new Diablo 2 Resurrected ladder season. And with that, thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you have any other tips that you'd like to share, and I'll be sure to read and reply to your comment as well. If you enjoyed the video or found it helpful, be sure to hit the thumbs up, hype the video, and also consider subscribing to my channel for more cutting edge guides just like this one. With Diablo 2 being updated and Diablo 4 receiving some promising new updates with its new expansion, I'll be sure to be focusing my efforts on more guides for these games. Anyhow, happy hunting, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.